Welcome back to another edition of the Penn State 365 podcast. I'm your host, Richie O'Leary, and joined as always when we're talking Penn State wrestling, my co-host, Joey Klender of HappyValleyInsider.com. Joey, I feel like we just did a podcast, because we did. We were doing a wrestling preview that just came out for the season, and of course, I forgot about the Marcus Blaze news. We didn't even mention it because I completely forgot, slipped my mind. But Marcus Blaze, #1 pound-for-pound wrestler in all of high school per flow wrestling, is coming to Penn State. Talk a little bit about how this one came together and what Penn State's getting. I mean, #1 overall.
Yeah, obviously Marcus Blaze, he's got tremendous talent. He's #1 recruit in the whole class. And, his talent isn't only folk style, it's also freestyle. So it's an ideal choice for him in terms of his college career, but also his post-college career. His other options were Purdue and Ohio State. Purdue, his brother goes there. Ohio State, he's from Ohio. But it seems like he was kind of thinking long term here and thinking of a place where he could not only make his college goals and aspirations become a reality, but also his international ones. He's had so much success on the international scene already, and he's not even out of high school yet. And on top of it, he's got a really, really solid track record in terms of guys who he's wrestled and beaten who are very accomplished collegiate guys. He's beaten Seth Gross, he's beaten Nashon Garrett, he's beaten Nico Megaludis. I mean, this is a kid who's in high school who's beaten Dayton Fix, another one. This is a kid who's super solid offensively and defensively. He's always in position. He's, in my opinion, picking the school that's going to benefit him long term. We saw Kyle Snyder we saw Kyle Snyder start at Ohio State and be really successful there in terms of his collegiate career and his international career, but then ultimately he ended up coming to Happy Valley. And then it's the same thing with Kyle Dake, a guy who's won all these world titles and finished third in the Olympics twice now. Started in Ithaca and now he's in State College. So it's probably just easier to, kind of streamline the whole process and end up in State College from start to finish. So obviously a huge pickup here. This is a kid who really has, the sky's the limit kind of label, and it's really a big pickup for Penn State. So
now per flow, I think he's listed as a 132 pounder. Yeah. So where do you kind of see him at that next level? Of course, the obvious would say 133, but he could pack on a little more weight and go to that 141.
I would think he'd probably be at 41. He is coming in at the right time where he can go right behind Bo, and he's already proven that he's got the ability of somebody who could come in and immediately make an impact. A guy who doesn't need a redshirt year, doesn't really need the, year and a half of being in a room to really acclimate themselves to the college speed, the college strength, the college technique. He's already there. So you'd think that he'd squeeze right into 41, and if Lilladal and Davis are going to take 25 and 33, Blaze can come right in and squeeze into 41. And then moving past that, you have Nate Desmond coming in. He could be the 25, and then Lilladal could potentially bump up to 33. That kind of puts Davis in a weird spot, but, it wouldn't be the first time a kid who comes into State College and is really good, is pretty successful, loses his spot to somebody who's younger for whatever reason, or just loses their spot in general. It happens. So I see him at 41 next year. He'll kind of come right in and make it, he'll fit right into the lineup well. Past that, I guess it's kind of depends on how much muscle he puts on, how much size he puts on, and also where the needs are throughout the rest of the lineup.
Yeah, you said the rest of the lineup. I kind of want to talk about that. Like for next season, I know this season didn't even start yet technically. So for next season, it would be Lilladell, Davis, Blaze, Van Ness, Kasich, Messenbrink, Haynes, Barr, Mirasola. Like that is an insane lineup, and it's young, and that's the scary part.
Right. You are really only losing Haynes after, beyond next year. Van Ness is going to have another year because of last year with the medical red shirt, and then Kasich's only a sophomore, Messenbrink's only a sophomore. You're getting a really healthy mix of the young talent that has a lot of capability and has a really high ceiling, and you're mixing it with veterans who know how to work, know how to win at this level, know how to be successful in March. So you're getting these younger guys with a lot of talent and a lot of already proven discipline because of how successful they are before college. You're
Hmm.
getting them into an environment where you have really successful college kids and then they know how to transition to the next step and get better every day in the room, get better every year. So, this is the kind of thing you want out of your program. Just it's like recycling talent. It's a
Hmm.
constant flow. And this is why Penn State's been so good for the last decade is this is what they've been able to do. You've been able to bring guys in who are already proven and are already, super solid guys and they're young and they just continue to get better every single year. And then when you put good mentors around them, it just kind of compounds itself.
Hmm.
This lineup's going to look super dangerous for, another, 6, 7, 8 years, especially with the incoming class for next year. I mean, and then beyond that, it's really going to be interesting to see how the next 2 years pans out in terms of who the Lions can get to fill in these other weight classes where guys are going to be leaving. But it's
Yeah.
it's pretty insane how this team continues to be as solid as it is up front, but then also support it with the depth behind all the starting guys. We talked about it yesterday on the podcast about how Van Ness gets hurt. You kind of you're thinking Kasich can come in and he can win some points and help with the team, but he comes out, loses his first match at nationals, and wrestles all the way back to third, and
Hmm.
was seated as high as second or ranked as high as second or third last year midseason. The depth of the lineup is also just something it's really something to look at.
Yeah, you talk about depth. I mean, the rest of this 2025 class, three of the top eight pound for pound prospects. That's every high school class together. With PJ Duke, the number one at 157, Will Hunkel, number two at 175, who's also number eight overall. Number three at 138, Dalton Perry. Number four at 165, Asher Cunningham. And number five at 126, Nate Desmond. Out of those five guys, I know this is a Marcus Blaze podcast for the most part, but out of those five guys, do you see any of those guys probably cracking the lineup next year? I keep looking, but there's just so much, like you said, there's depth, like up and down.
Desmond is somebody who comes to mind because I don't
Hmm.
think that Lilladell will stay at 25 for more than. I don't
Okay.
think he'll be there his whole college career. I don't know that,
Hmm.
but I think that he'll probably bump up. It's really, really rare you see a guy who's a 25 pounder stay there for all 4 years. You're
Hmm.
talking about a grown man who's in college by the
Yeah.
time they're when they're a senior, they're 22, 23 years old. They've been in college 4 or 5 years.
Hmm.
It's pretty rare that you find a guy who's a senior and can still make 25. I mean, it happens, but it's pretty rare.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
It's
so
crazy.
yeah, I mean, I would think Desmond would probably come in and be the guy who, if I were to put money on it, he'd be the guy that I would think would go immediately in the lineup. I think PJ Duke has the potential to be in the lineup as well. I think it just
Hmm.
kind of depends how things shake out. I think he's going to be a guy who um, is among the most solid of the 10 that start with whenever he's starting. I mean, he's going to be kind of not the catalyst because he's not a lighter weight who starts duels or anything, but PJ Duke's got the most potential out of anybody in this class beside Marcus Blaze to me. PJ Duke is an
Yeah.
absolute monster. He wrestled with Bill Farrell this past weekend. He
Hmm.
pinned Bryce Andonian, which is insane, and then went on to beat Will Lewan in the finals. And I don't think that match was necessarily close. So this is another guy who kind of you put it into the Blaze category where they're probably planning to train with the Lions and with Kale after the collegiate career ends, and they're looking to go international. So Duke's another one I think has a lot of potential there to crack the lineup,
Okay.
right away.
Yeah. 2026, they don't have any commits yet, but they're after a ton of different guys. I'd say the most notable two would probably be Jax Forrest and Bo Bassett, obviously
Hmm.
two Pennsylvania guys. What, do you
Yep.
hearing anything on those two right now?
Um, I know that obviously they both have a lot of schools after them.
Oh yeah. Well,
You
Bo's
know,
Twitter's like a graphic of
right.
45 different schools.
Right.
It's like,
And shout out University of Pittsburgh at Johnstown for still being in the top 9, I
that's
think, which
crazy.
is crazy.
Yeah.
But I would probably guess now. I know that it could work if somehow Kale was able to pull off a miracle and he was able to get all 3 of these guys to commit, because you could get Blaze at 41, you get Jax at 49, and you could get Bassett at 57, and you could probably switch those 2. But I would think Bassett would probably end up 57. I do not think that Penn State will get all 3. I hope I'm wrong, but I don't think so. I think the best opportunity they have is to get Bassett. I don't think they'll get Jax Force. I think Jax Force will probably go to Oklahoma State. That's just my guess. But I think Bassett is probably the guy that would be more prone to come to Penn State over any other school. I know that, we've talked about it before. Rutgers has really drawn quite an interest to Bassett, so there's something there.
That might have something to do with.
We've talked about that, and I even said that Bassett could be a guy that if you want to put all your eggs into one basket, Bo Bassett's probably the guy. If you want to put all your eggs into one Bassett.
There you go. That's what? That's a rough one. I might have to take that one out.
Okay. But I wouldn't blame you. But no, I would put Bassett. Bassett's a kind of guy where he's gonna attract other talent. He's a guy who I would imagine probably has one heck of a future of being a technician and being a coach. He's already super technical as it is, really good at explaining things.
Yeah.
He might be somebody Rutgers is looking at as, hey, let's get him here as an athlete. He spends 4 or 5 years here. He wins a couple national titles, and he comes back and coaches. It's a total possibility. It would be insane if Rutgers pulls it off. I don't know if it'll happen. I don't think it will. I think he'll end up coming to Penn State, or I think he'll end up going to Ohio State. I think he really enjoyed the Iowa visit, which is, something that's
a factor.
You need to look at. And then there's also Michigan on the table there. So I mean, it's going to be something if they can get him to. Yeah. 2 or 3 would be really incredible. And then if you put Duke in the mix too, then you have 3 of the top 4 right now.
Yeah.
So insane.
Absolutely insane. So that's all we got for today. A little bit of a shorter episode, but went over Marcus Blaze 2025 recruiting class, which I believe is probably done now, because I think yesterday was signing day. Today's signing day. I think it's like a 3-day period or something like that. Yeah. So these guys should be announced relatively soon, if not all have been announced yet. I forget. I got to double check the tweets and the profiles and all that. But yeah, that's really it for me and Joey. That's another edition of the Penn State 365 podcast. Signing off.